Welcome to another informational video by the Youth Athletic and Development League. Today we're going to talk about the 6-2 offense. What 6-2 in the 6-2 offense means is that there are 6 players in the court, with 2 of them being setters. So to understand why this offense is used, we're going to look in first at the restrictions on the back row player as opposed to the front row player. So let's go ahead and look at that. Here we have the front row player and a back row player, meaning that when the ball is served, the back row player is behind the 10-foot line and the front row player is in front of the 10-foot line. So when the ball is served, if you're in the back row, you can only jump when you're in the back of the court or behind the 10-foot line. As long as you're behind the 10-foot line, you can jump as high as you want. However, if you start behind the 10-foot line and then make your way up to the net during the play, you're not allowed to go above the top of the net, which makes it really hard for you to block hits or attack the ball if you can't go above the level of the net. However, your front row player can jump up above the top level of the net no matter where they are on the court. And so ideally, you want as many front row people on the front row that can go above the level of the net to play. And your setter doesn't need to be able to leave the floor to set, typically. So the idea is that you bring your back row player up to set because they don't need to jump, and then you have 3 players in the front row who can all jump up above the level of the net to block or hit the ball. So let's go ahead and we're going to look at the rotation here. So we'll start off with our 6 players in the court, and we're going to go ahead and change the t-shirts on the 2 setters to yellow. So we have 2 setters on the floor, the 2 of the 6-2. And you'll notice that your setters are opposite each other, which means that whether you go right or you go left, there's always 2 players between you. Now, if the idea is to get your back row, you must always remember, as a player, you're paying attention to the players to the side of you and in front of you for your spacing. You can't go. So in this position, when I do this video for real, I'll not mess up, and I'm getting tired of restarting. You always have to be to the right or left of the person to the right or left of you. So in this particular situation, you have when your setter is in position number 1, and they need to stay to the right of the feet of the left player to them. I need to be able to word that better. Likewise, they have to be behind the feet of the person in front of them. So, if we're trying to get our player up to the front row to set, this causes a couple problems. First being, there's a big hole in the back court where our setter came from. And the middle player can't come over and guard that hole because they got to stay to the left side of your feet. The other problem is by being in front, you're in front of your front row players, which is a fault in itself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fix the problem with the front row. We're going to move you back to behind the 10-foot line. This allows your front row players to play back to the 10-foot line and give them a little extra room to serve receive. Then our next problem is to allow our back row or middle back row player to be able to play more of the court. So in order to do that, your setter starts off as close to the sideline as possible, which then allows our back row players to move over and cover the entire back court, which is kind of a W, which a lot of coaches like to run as a W. Now it's the job of the player right next to the setter to block for them or block them out from the serve. The reason being is since they're going to set, they don't want to take the first ball. So when the ball is served, it becomes near the setter. The player next to him should get the ball all the time. If this doesn't happen, we'll deal with that. I'll talk about what we do when this doesn't happen later in the video. So for now, let's see what it looks like. So the ball is served. And our setter runs around the outside of the player and gets into the same position. So then the ball comes over to the back row player, who then will bump it back to the setter, who will set it up, for the kill. Hopefully the kill. So let's reset. And let's look at this from a little bit of a different angle. So the ball is served, and our setter is running to the net from the outside of the player. And then they're crossing over to the middle of the court to receive a set. The back row player is bumping it. They bump it to the setter. The setter sets it up. And our hitter goes up and spikes the ball. So let's go ahead. Nope, I forgot. We're going to review real quick. So when we're from the one position as the setter, you want to come up to the 10-foot line and as close to the sideline as possible, which allows our front row players to back up and play serve receive, and allows our back row players to spread out a little bit so they can cover the entire back court. So now let's go ahead and rotate. Now our back row server is in position number 2, or middle back, and they're still opposite the other setter. So in this position, what you're going to do is you're going to come up to the 10-foot line pretty much in the middle of the court. This, once again, allows your back or your front row to fall back into serve receive, and then your back row can play the entire back row. Now you need to be careful of your feet. This is why you want to be in the middle of the court, because you want to split the court in half, so your two back row players can each play half the court. So now when the ball gets served, you're going to go up to the net, right in the middle. Ball is going to come over. Back row player is going to bump the ball. Setter is going to get the ball and set it to your hitter. We'll go up and spike it for the point. So now let's go back and we'll rotate one last time so that we'll move our setter into the last position in the back row, position number 3, or back left. So in this position, you're still opposite your other setter. And you're going to come up to the 10-foot line and as close to the left side of the court as possible. So once again, it allows our back row to come up and share half the court each, and our front row to play back to the 10-foot line for serve-receive defense. And then our ball is served. Our setter comes to the outside of their player and then comes into the net, and the ball is received from the back row. Now, earlier we were talking about what happens when your player in the front doesn't block your setter very well and they get served at. So now we're going to deal with that. So in this scenario, our front right player, or position number 6, is playing off of our setter about a little bit. Now this could be for a couple of reasons. It could be because they're just not real focused at that minute and they kind of let their mind wander and they're not in the right position. Or you could be facing a really good server, and that server might be putting that ball right in the middle of the court, right by the net, and your front right might be cheating in to try to help the center. But unfortunately, if you have a server that's good enough to place the ball right there, they're probably good enough to place it anywhere in the court. And what they're going to do is serve at your setter. Now, worst case scenario, your setter isn't paying attention either, and as soon as the ball is served, they're rushing up to take the set, and the ball bounces in a wide open hole, and we lose the point. Let's rewind that, and we're going to assume that our setter is actually paying attention like they should. Just because you're setting doesn't mean you can't receive, so you should be paying attention the whole time. So the ball gets served. This time our setter is ready, and they're going to pass the ball. Now this presents a problem. If they were the setter, they can't bump to themselves, so now where are they going to bump? They're going to bump to the other setter. This is why the other setter needs to be paying attention also. If they see the ball go to the back row setter and they receive the ball, then they know they need to get up to the front and receive the set. So the ball gets bumped up to the middle of the net for the setter. Setter goes up there to set the ball, and now we have a problem in that you can't set back to the setter, or you could, but they can't jump to spike the ball. So it really leaves you with two targets for a set. You could set to the back row, but that's a topic for another day. So for today, we're just going to talk about just setting to one of the two left over. So he's going to go ahead and he's going to set the ball to one of his open hitters. They're going to go up and hit the ball. But this isn't where our problem is. So now what do? Do we stay in where we are right now and let the front row setter continue to set and therefore eliminate or limit us down to only two people in the front row who can hit? Or do we bring our back row setter into the setting position? What we're going to do is we're going to bring that back row setter into the setting position so that we have all three of our hitters. So as soon as the ball goes to the net, our back row setter is going to retreat back to his defensive position. Our front row setter is going to run into the setting position. And our hitter is going to fall back to their defensive player position in the front row. And they're ready to play now.